Welcome into the one-on-one pregame report. I'm Lou Orlando alongside Nick Guzman. The waiting is over. It's finally time for the Fordham Rams to play some postseason basketball. It's been a magical season so far. If you haven't been dialed in, Fordham went 24-7. That's their first 20-win season since 1991. It's their best overall record since 1971. That team went all the way to the NCAA tournament, 12-6 in conference. And I think most importantly, they clinch a double bye, and that's really where I want to start, Nick, is they get the double bye, and what that means is they get to sit back for the first two rounds, kind of watch, and now they know they go up against number 11 LaSalle. Nick, how important is that double bye for this team?
It's so important because LaSalle right now, it's going to be 3 games in 3 days for them. Fordham have been sitting and resting and waiting for this one. LaSalle are going to be a little bit winded, but when it comes to tournament basketball, really anything can happen. But the rest 100% benefits Fordham. They got that big win against Duquesne to end the season. That's who LaSalle beat to get here. It could have been a Fordham-Duquesne rematch, but that blowout win to Duquesne on the final day of the season secured the double bye for Fordham. So crucial. And now it's important that the Rams don't underestimate this LaSalle team. They played a very close game early in the season, and that's kind of the game that sort of sprung Fordham into this big run in the A-10. They were 1-3 in Atlantic 10 play before that LaSalle game. Fordham goes to LaSalle. They get a game winner from Antrell Charlton. That sort of springs Fordham forward in this A-10 season. They win 5 games in a row. They finished 12-6 in the A-10, but without that game, and that was a very close game. These two teams are evenly matched despite Fordham getting that double bye and LaSalle having to beat Duquesne and having to beat Rhode Island before that. But the rest is going to be big. 3 games in 3 days is not easy on any team, and Fordham have to take advantage of that late in this one.
Yeah, I think you always come across these conversations whenever one team has a bye and the other team's been playing for a little bit, rest versus rust, and I'm sure there's always something to, this LaSalle team's been playing for 2 days, they're probably sharp, but you're never going to say no to 2 days of rest and then, hey, you only have to win 2 games to get to the championship, so you're always going to take the double bye. And, it's funny, you talk about the last time Fordham played LaSalle, that was back on January 14th, and really the conversations around this team were completely different. As you said, 1-3 in conference play going into that game. Darius Quisenberry didn't start the last time they played against LaSalle, and it was a 66-64 win. Antrell Charlton hit the game winner. Will Richardson led the way with 19 points. But I think when you look at this LaSalle team, I think, right, as you said, it's important not to sleep on them. When you look at their starting 5, I think there's really a wealth of scoring depth. You look at Khalil Brantley, who's been their scoring leader, but Jameer Bruckus, as of late, his last 3 games, you're looking at 18, 23, scoring at a 66% rate from the floor. And you have Josh Nickelberry, the 6th man of the year. So I think there was probably not, that top scorer in the A-10 that you're looking out for, but a lot of scoring depth throughout this lineup.
There are weapons for sure, and Fordham are going to have their hands full defensively, but that's where this Fordham team thrives, on the defensive side of the ball. We've seen them lock up some of the best players in the A-10, whether it's Kyle Rose, Antrell Charlton, playing lockdown defense down the stretch. For Fordham, I'm not so worried about, the defensive side of the ball, more on the offensive side of things. We've seen this team can get cold sometimes. That George Mason game, there were long stretches where Fordham could not score a basket, and they still got the game to overtime despite shooting, woefully from the field. That speaks to the defense that this team plays. So if Fordham shows up and plays with the same sort of defensive intensity that they usually do, and they can make a couple of clutch shots, and they can just sort of get the 3-ball going early, make some shots, get into a rhythm, establish themselves against LaSalle, they'll have a lot of success out there.
Yeah, I think the 3-ball in particular, that's kind of an area where this game could maybe get turned around its head. Fordham comes in as the favorite, but 14 out of 15th in the A-10 when it comes to 3-point percentage. LaSalle is 6th, so if LaSalle gets it going from deep and Fordham doesn't, you wonder if that's somewhere where they get it going. And you kind of mentioned the streakiness, right? Fordham's offense can get streaky. LaSalle is a team, though. They are streaky. Ending the regular season, they lost their last 5 games. Before that, they won 5 straight. And then before both of that, they lost 5 again. So they've kind of been up and down streaky, but they've won their last 2. If LaSalle's on a streak, and it seems like they are, and it seems like they're really kind of putting it all together, this is a very talented LaSalle team that's probably better than just, the 11 seed.
The bottom line is the month we're currently in, it's March. And anything can happen in March. LaSalle, if you're taking your picks for this A-10 tournament, like you said, Lou, they're not a team coming in hot. They did not come in this tournament hot. They lost 5 games in a row. They lost bad games. The final game of the regular season against Loyola Chicago at home, they lost. Loyola Chicago have had a rough time of it in the A-10 in their first season in the conference. To lose that game at home, they were blown out before that at Dayton. They lost a home game to Duquesne. a blowout 91-74 loss to Duquesne. And then they play that same Duquesne team in the second round and show up and beat them 81-70. You never know what's going to happen. And the fact that LaSalle can come into this tournament so cold, then win 2 games, and be the team that Fordham's playing here in this quarterfinal, I just can't stress enough how the Rams cannot overlook this LaSalle team. There's weapons, but Fordham, they've got weapons too. They've got Darius Quisenberry, they've got Khalid Moore. They have so many contributors on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, we know how sound they are. It's going to be a really, really interesting matchup.
Fordham's got weapons. They've also got a crazy passionate fan base.
Yes.
And having this game at Barclays Center, we know I think over 1,000 tickets got sold to students alone. And
1,400 was the last number I saw.
1,400, right? So you also have Fordham alums that you think are going to be there. I've already heard just from texting some of the people we know at the station that it seems like Barclays is filling up. So this is going to be a home environment for Fordham. You're talking about, I think it's their last 6 games at Rose Hill that were sold out. They won all of those games. So you get a home environment in there that's, it's supposed to be a neutral site. It might not play like a neutral site, Nick.
Coach Ergo and the players have talked so much about how important it is to have a loud atmosphere at these home games. And now this is technically a neutral site game at Barclays, but we saw all week they were selling tickets inside the Rose Hill gym. The lines were out the door. The hype is palpable. The hype is real. Students are traveling to go to this game in packs, in bunches. There's going to be a lot of Fordham students there. And that sort of atmosphere, when it's supposed to be a neutral site game, does so much. Because think about LaSalle's game against Duquesne yesterday. There would not have been a home crowd there for either side. This is going to be a Fordham crowd. And we've seen what allows Rose Hill Gym can do to this Fordham team. It elevates them. Fordham have had some slow starts at home, but once the crowd really starts getting into it in the second half, they've pulled away from opponents. I'd say it as good as any team in the country. They've used home energy to their advantage, and that's credit to Keith Ergo and the players for sort of calling out the students and the fans early in the non-conference schedule, saying, "Hey guys, we got to get to the gym. We got to pack the Rose Hill Gym." The students and fans have responded. The gym's been packed, and now we're gonna move Rose Hill campus south to the Barclays Center and pack it down there.
We've seen what the fans can do for Fordham. We've also seen what the fans can do to opposing teams,
Yes.
opposing coaches, talking about how it shakes them up. And playing in Barclays, that's an NBA arena, maybe a little bit of chills for that. Fordham's already played in Barclays. They played last year against Miami, but I think we're almost all set to send it down. Ryan Greger and Sam Davis are going to have the call from Barclays, but first we're going to send it. They talked to Keith Ergo for the game.
The one-on-one post-game report.
This magical season for the Fordham Rams continues, a 69-61 win over the 11-seeded LaSalle University. Fordham advances to the Atlantic 10 Championship semifinals for the first time since 2006. And Nick, what a game. You get 22 points from Darius Quisenberry, who hits that dagger 3. The guys on the court, I think, said it best. That's the shot of the season. You get 20 points from Khalid Moore. 15 of them came in the second half. And by the way, you're talking about the second half. 30 combined points from Moore and Quisenberry out of the 35 second half points. They completely took over. Just what a win for this team. What a win for this program.
Yes, my initial reaction is just to take a deep breath. That was some second half. We knew LaSalle were going to come out firing, and they did just that. They came out in the zone, a little bit of a different look that Fordham had to contend with, got back into it, but then Fordham kind of stretched away a little bit, but LaSalle came back at the end. Fordham could not hit a free throw for the life of them. 11 of 24 from the line, 45%. That has to improve against Dayton. But with all that being said, with all, this game could have been, Fordham shoots, as Ryan said on the broadcast, 70% from the line. It's not close. For all that being said, it's a A10 quarterfinal win. You're on to the semifinals, a chance to go to the championship game for the first time ever. And there's a lot to be happy about, but also there's a lot to improve on for Saturday.
Well, I think obviously you have to give credit. Number 11, LaSalle, right? They had a great effort, did not play like an 11 seed. I think conversely, if you're Fordham, you look at taking an 11-point lead into the second half and all those chances to extend that lead, right? LaSalle comes out strong to start the second half, but you pull away again, and you have a couple chances where it looks like you could really drive the dagger into them and never really pulled away, and eventually you do, but I think you look at those moments, you look at some of the stretches of that game, and you go, man, maybe against a better team, we don't get the benefit of that doubt.
Yeah, those second half turnovers, too. It was 11 turnovers for Fordham, 13 overall throughout the game. A little bit sloppy throughout, but the biggest thing is that with all that happening, when Fordham needed to make big shots, they made them. Darius Quisenberry stepped up, 10 of 19 shooting, 22 points, although it was just 1 of 7 from beyond the arc, but that one was
That
the
one
dagger.
mattered.
That one was the dagger. And it's not about what happens, all throughout the game. It's that when it's close at the end, who's going to step up and take over the game? It was Darius Quisenberry in this one. Khalid Moore also came up huge, 20 points, 11 boards, just making his presence felt. Rostik Nowitzki with the blocks.
6 blocks.
6 blocks, almost unheard of. It was a full effort for Fordham, a full team effort. You watch that game and you see there are 100% things that have to get better for Dayton, but that game's on Saturday. For now, you can think about how when the going got tough, Fordham and their stars stepped up and they won a tournament game, which is not easy to do. The crowd was behind them the whole time, and you're in a conference tournament semifinal, which is a huge achievement in itself.
You talked about that crowd. I think I got the text. Keith Ergo said over 2,000 tickets got sold, and you really felt like it. Even on the TV, they just threw up there. They were doing the kind of like jokey awards, and they said the Fordham student section got an award for just being really loud. And that's exactly what happened, throwing some love towards Will Richardson, 10 points as a freshman in an A-10 tournament game. And then, you do look ahead at Dayton. This is a team coming in number 1 in the preseason poll with 22 first-place votes. You get that day off. I think that's a little bit of a unique thing. A lot of times these tournaments, you don't get a day off, and it's just 3 straight days. So you get 2 days to prepare for Dayton. This is the top defense in the A-10. They're not one of the best offenses, but they do have Deron Holmes and Tumani Kamara. Those are 2 of the best in the A-10. So I think Fordham's going to have their hands full. This is a team that beat them earlier in the season. And so it's a tough matchup, but Fordham, as you said, 1 step closer to that A-10 championship game.
And when Fordham met Dayton earlier in the season, it was not close. It was ugly. 82-58 for Dayton. That was at the Rose Hill Gym. Darius Quisenberry had just 3 points in 32 minutes. But this is a different Fordham team. They were 1-3 to start A-10 play. They played a pretty soft non-conference schedule, but got through it, incredibly, just the 1 loss to Arkansas. And then you start out 1-3 in A-10 play, and then you think, oh goodness, where's this going to go? But the 1-3 Fordham Rams that's a different team than the Rams that are in the semifinals of the A-10s right now. Dayton have weapons. You mentioned how good they are defensively, and it's going to be a really, really tough matchup. And Fordham are going to have to clean up the things that were messy in this game, the free throw shooting, the turnovers. That stuff has to be cleaner against Dayton because you got a lot of second chances against LaSalle that might not happen against the Flyers.
And there will be time to work on all that. There'll be time to prep for Dayton. But for tonight, Fordham wins. It's a chance for the Fordham Rams, for the Fordham fans to celebrate responsibly, of course. But a chance to enjoy this win and savor this. This was something coming into this year. Not many people outside of Fordham expect it to happen. They get the 3 seed. They win in advance to the semifinals. And that will just about do it for our coverage here. For Julia Moss, who is our producer back there in the booth, I'm Lou Orlando, Nick Guzman. You join me all day in the studio with updates. Bobby Chaffardini is our sports director. This has been a production of WFUV Sports. Have a great one, everybody.